So I've been working on my characters for the Art of Creation, my animated comedy series, bearing in mind that it's like a fly on the wall kind of reality TV show about, the goings on of the Ministry of Souls and the news network and all the characters and, the behind the scenes and their personal lives and their personal stories and, blah, 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 reporting the news, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. So one of my characters is, I had originally called her Shirley, but I've decided I want to call her Pearl. And she's doing her agony aunt, Pearls of Wisdom. So people are writing in real life and tell her their problems, and the character on the show will answer them. She's incredible at giving advice, but she she's like it. I can't describe her because she's made up of so many different women in my life growing up, or like on TV, or people who were like inspirations, or characters that remained in my memory growing up in New Zealand or in a different country or whatever. So, but she's she was originally I had originally written her in as like the mayor's wife who had aspirations of her husband being like governor, or maybe even one day prime minister, but he was never going to really amount to anything more than mayor of a small town, and he was happy with it. But she had high aspirations, kind of that hyacinth bouquet, sort of above her station sort of thing, and being a bit of the ditzy blonde. But then she developed over time to become air hostess, blonde. Back in my day, air hostesses were very glamorous. They had to, it was like a prerequisite that they had to be above a certain height and below a certain weight. They had to speak, more than a couple of languages. They had to have like degrees in business and finance and, like all sorts of things. They had to be immaculate. They wouldn't have dreamed of twerking and that to put on the news, and that that would have been horrifying to an air hostess in my day, because they were like next to movie stars. They were like the epitome of glamour and um, brains, and it was something to aspire to. So then I made her an air hostess, and she's in the story, she's gonna meet her husband John through my dating app Spellbound. And bearing in mind, this is the Ministry of Souls, so everybody who works there, they have some kind of ancient bloodline connected to a certain religion or belief or practice or faith in that, because obviously talking about the Ministry of Souls, so in our storylines I have to cover all religions, all faiths, all mythologies, like it expands the storyline beyond just like people in a town like South Park or Cohog. It gives it, and like Springfield and that, like we're able to branch out. We have a reason to be able to branch out, which can keep the series going, and, and more merchandise, make more money off merchandise if we make the characters memorable or collectible. So we've got Shirl, and she's got long blonde hair, and she's actually based off my primary school teacher. I can't remember her name for the life of me, but I used to do palm readings for her in the school playground when I was little at Fairfield Primary. She had long blonde hair. She was absolutely beautiful, and if I remember rightly, but don't quote me on it, I think she used to be an air hostess, and her fiance was killed on Mount Erebus, on the Mount Erebus crash, and I remember just always being so sad for her, and she used to come and I used to do palm readings for her, and sometimes she used to let me go and sit in the teacher's lounge and, you know, she knew how to protect me. She was like my first guardian angel, I think. And that's why in my story, and then they were gone, I wrote the plane crash in memory of her fiance. It immortalizes him. So yeah, because yeah, I worshipped her. I thought she was so beautiful. I just can't remember her name. I think her last name started with a B, but I can't remember. So she kind of looks like her, but she's from the Witch of Endor bloodline. So she's a little bit not rough around the edges. It's not that she's not cultured. She's not dim because she's very wise, but she's not as cultured as she thinks she is in her head, or she's not as. It's that she thinks that she's like a woman of the people. She's kind of, you know who she's very, there's a lot of Kath and Kim influence in her, you know, with Kath. You know how Kath and Kim thinks she's like a lot more cultured and sophisticated. You know, like she says things like and the way that she reads the world isn't the truth. Because she's not naive, she's not dim, she's just I can't. If you know Kath and Kim, if you know Kath, you'll know what I'm talking about when I talk about Pearl. And the way she talks is very. I was going to have her maybe sort of South London because her husband John is from London. He's a geezer. You know, like he's like bit of this, bit of that. He keeps himself just above the law. Where if he's ever caught being just below the law, it's not going to come back on him. Like he's smart, he's very sort of cunning and savvy, very sort of totem fox. You know, if you know fox totem, like he's very sly and cunning, and he's in and out. He's charming. He holds people's focus, but it's like a distraction. For the sneaky and the skulky and the cunning and the strategy and that's going on behind the mind of the fox sort of thing. That's her husband, and he worships the ground he walks on. But of course, at no point in any of their lives or our stories can we lie. I'm not allowed to lie. I'd get into trouble if I wrote anything in that's teaching anything or giving advice to anyone that was based on a lie. Like I would literally in real life get into trouble for it. So I have to be imaginative and creative with how the truth is told, obviously for the purposes of comedy, without it sort of being an outright lie, because a lot of these characters are based on thousands of people who have influenced me growing up, either in real life or on TV or in books or movies or whatever, and I've turned them, morphed them into different characters and that to tell them my stories. So Pearl is based on quite a few different people, but that Kath and Kim thing is a huge inspiration for Pearl's character and the way she speaks. But of course, she's from New Zealand, so she did some training in Australia, but she's very posh. But she's got that very strong New Zealand accent coming through, which is based on a lot of women in New Zealand over a certain age who have a bit of money tend to act a little bit like they're above their station. The hyacinth bouquet sort of thing. But the way she talks is like because she thinks she's a woman of the people. And Kath, like when you think of those characters, like that breakdancing woman at the Olympics, and that, like, they think they're getting away with it. Like, they think that. Oh, I just adore her. I wouldn't mind to do her voice myself. She took etiquette lessons, so she learned how to speak properly. But, sometimes she screws it up and makes mistakes. Like, how she wants to, raise awareness for, she wants to increase sentences for people who commit, like, sexual assaults and rapes and stuff. So she brings out the charity album Rap for Rapists. And her husband John has to spend like so much of his time covering up the stuff that she gets wrong because he loves her, but she like innocently walks into things that he has to like help bring her out of because she doesn't realize she's doing it. It's everything she does is with the purest of intentions, but it always ends up almost nearly taking her down a very dark or troublesome path. Because, yeah, she doesn't realize a lot of the stuff she's saying could get her into a lot of trouble. Especially with men. Oh, God. I don't even know where to begin. The women that I've grown up with, the women that have inspired me, probably my biggest inspirations would have to be definitely Kath and Kim and Hyacinth Bouquet. Patricia Rutledge, is it? She just, nobody else could have done her role. So, yeah, I'm sitting here thinking about her character, what she's going to look like, and, like working on everyone in her life's kind of backstories, and because it's a reality TV show, so it's like looking through the eyes of the camera as they're doing like reality TV. So, it's like the behind the scenes of behind the scenes of behind the scenes of sort of thing. And it's all animated. And so when they're sitting interviewing her, they'll say, what made you want to get into being like an agony aunt? She'll be like, well, it's in my blood. We're in the Bible. I'm related to the Witch of Endor if you don't know who she is. But, she did some great work summoning the dead. And we did a good enough job that God wrote us into the Bible. So, of course, that means I get to work here and offer my wisdoms like the Bible. So that's why she's wise, because her bloodline is from the Bible. And, for Christians and Catholics and that, when they need God's wisdom, they go to the Bible. So she's that. However, she's honest to the point of being let's just say it's not gossip if it's not news. She's constantly accused of gossiping, but it's technically not gossiping. She's telling the truth. She's repeating stories, but she probably shouldn't be. Like everybody's business is not everybody's business. but she reports the news and she's got stuff to report, and she heard this, and of course, she's on the panel show Loose Lips with Doba Drexel, the karmic news reporter, and Amber Diamond, the cosmic meteorologist, and weather girl, and all of that, and CK, the comedian, and all that. So she's on the panel show with all of them, having it, but it's not gossip if it's news, and she's got things to say. People have a right to know what's going on, and she's right. It's just like, yeah, it comes across as gossip. It comes across as being nosy. So when she's asked, what made you want to get into doing being an agony aunt and loose lips and that. Oh no, it's not gossip. No, I've been accused of it being gossip. No, but I'm a journalist. I'm a reporter. I report the news. It would not be allowed to go out of the station if it was a lie. And she's right. But it's like, but does everybody need to know that? Because I grew up with aunties, and if you're Indigenous, you're going to know, or if you're like Irish or Scottish, you're going to know as well. I grew up with mums and aunties who sat around you having copious amounts of tea and coffee, chain smoking, having a gossip, talking about everybody. They knew, they were like clucking hens. Everybody knew everybody's business. Everybody was up in everybody's business, and probably only about 5% of it was the truth. By the time it got round to my mum's ears, it was probably 95% Chinese whispers and a lie sort of thing. So this is like the whole loose lips, because my mum used to say, my Auntie Kay as well, loose lips sink ships. Like, be careful what you say. A lot of things can happen between now and then. So, I've turned it into loose lips sink ships. It's not gossip, it was news. For the theme tune for Loose Lips. Because it's like, all my aunties, my fire and my mum sitting around having a gossip, talking about everyone, and occasionally the men as well. Well, my Uncle Maine loved to sit around and smoke and like drink tea and have a goss, and curtain twitches, and oh, did you hear about, so that's put into the whole thing. But everything she says is the truth. So she'll say, well, I had a lot of inspiration growing up, and, I always had been taught, how to have, I was born with the gift of the gab. My mother used to say I was born with the gift of the gab, and then it'll switch to her husband John saying her mother used to say the kid doesn't shut up. But because Pearl sees it one way, but the truth is her husband is like, So John said, why don't you apply for a job at the station? Because, you always know what's going on. You've got the gift of the gab, your mother used to say. And then it'll switch to John and he'll say, I told her, your mother used to say, she doesn't shut up. So, seeing as you seem to know everybody's business, why don't you get a job and shout it out to the news? But in her head, she's taking him what he's saying as, you're really good at this, why don't you apply for a job at the news station? It's not that she's delusional, it's that she doesn't want, she doesn't see the truth that way. If it goes against what she knows in her heart, sort of thing, because her heart is from the Bible, she doesn't see it that way. Because like how the Bible has a way of glossing over things. That's what she does. She glosses over things. Like my mum and my aunties and that, they gloss over things. Kath and Kim, they gloss over things. Things that really need to be like looked at, like you really shouldn't be doing this, ladies, or whatever. It's glossed over. So she glosses over things. But they're really things that should probably be addressed, because they're not, So I decided to go for this job interview because I thought, well, you know, in for a penny, in for a pounding. People are looking at you like, what? With her etiquette classes and her having her barbecues. She has a barbecue every weekend, invites the friends from the network. I just adore her. Yeah. So that's Pearl. I gave her the last name Widdicombe for a reason, but because of Anne Widdicombe, because I love her moxie. She's a very virtuous sort of God-fearing Catholic woman, I believe. But there's also a bit of Mo Molam in there as well, the politician, Mo Molam. So yeah. But I don't know if I'll keep the last name Widdicombe. John is based on a couple of people that I know with a bit of a dark past that I'm not going to mention here because let's not go there. But yeah, and also Michael from Grand Theft Auto. There's a bit of that in there. So yeah. So I just thought right here, put her character out there, Pearl. So yeah, so her last name might change, but I decided the reason why Shell's Pearls, why I went with the name Pearl, is because you know how a pearl is created because the shell rubs together when it's irritated. The pearl is like the accumulation of the irritation. That's kind of she's a little bit irritating, but she comes out with these pearls of wisdom that you can't deny. My sister and I were saying, like we wish we'd listened to our mum more growing up because, like, she was mostly irritating. Like, she irritated us. We were teenage girls, we were girls, and our mother was irritating. But she would come out with the most, like, she could knock a crossword out of the park. She would come out with these most incredible philosophies. She was a fashion designer with the most incredible style. She could be very ladylike, very graceful, the way she carried herself. She was always dressed, when she went to functions and that, she was dressed immaculate. Like, she would have her brooches and her scarves, and she, like, just accessorized like a goddess. But she was a bored housewife whose husband was away with the military, and pretty much all she had was her gossip circle and his cigarettes. And you'd walk into the room and it would be all like smoke filled, and you'd go back out and your hair would be stinking of cigarette smoke, and but those were the memories. So yeah, so Pearl's made up of so many characters in my life, so many people in my life. It's why you have to take notice of everything, eh? Sit back and take notice of the people that have really, especially if you're a creative, like a writer or a musician or whatever, like the whole muse and inspiration circle, like it's something that's not really discussed, and it should be discussed, because there's people out there in our everyday lives who are going to find out one day that they were a part of like a huge inspiration of a song or a character or a book or a story or a movie or a video game or whatever, that's going to, like, change people's lives. And they need to know, they deserve to be mentioned. Because all those experiences now get turned into a character to, become what I hope will become like Britain or South America's or North America's or Australasia's or whoever lets me build my first foundation. Their first animated cartoon series. Well, it wouldn't be in America, but first proper, I hope I get to do it here. Either here or maybe South America, Australasia. It would make more sense if it was here though because of her accent. I don't know what the other countries' versions of that accent would be. But she's very Commonwealth. That's what she is. She's Commonwealth. I'm part of the Commonwealth. Anyway, I just wanted to put it out there. I'm just documenting it. So her last name might change. And her first name has changed. She's now Pearl. God, I can't wait. I know exactly how I want it to look as well. I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anō. Mwah.